Trump's policy could alter the face of the American immigrant. A report by the New York Times. It's by Michael D. Shear, Miriam Jordan, and Caitlin Dickerson. The Trump administration has said the immigration overhaul it announced this week will ensure that new legal residents carry their own weight, without prejudice or favor. Yet the new rule for weeding out those who might be a drain on taxpayers will almost certainly disadvantage poor people from Latin America, Africa, and parts of Asia. Over time, people who are granted green cards, the major step toward winning citizenship, will become wealthier, but their numbers will shrink, researchers predicted. More green cards will go to immigrants with a good education and a measure of self-sufficiency. Fewer will be granted simply because someone has a family member of the United States. Before we get any further than this, if you want my quality to go up, if you want the video quality / audio quality, if you don't want the fans blaring in the background, please like, comment, and share my videos, okay? Once you start liking, commenting, and sharing, I will up the ante and up the quality. Immigrants from Europe and Canada are least likely to face problems under the new regulations, according to one study, which found that, by contrast, nearly 3/4 of recent arrivals from Mexico and the Caribbean have relatively modest incomes that would jeopardize their chances at a green card. Never before in our history have we closed off the American dream to strivers who aren't already middle class, said Doug Rand, who worked on immigration policy in the Obama White House and co-founded a technology company that helps immigrants obtain green cards. This is an attempt to turn back the clock and dramatically change the face of new Americans. The so-called public charge rule, which denies green cards to immigrants deemed likely to heavy welfare users, represents a fundamental shift for a nation that has long welcomed impoverished immigrants from around the world who seek a fresh start in a country with more opportunity than where they came from. There has always been a mix of immigrants, some arriving with skills and investment to make, while others bring little education or money. Immigrants seek to live and work in the United States permanently, may be engineers or construction workers, web designers or farmers, truck drivers or college students. The new rule, pushed by the White House advisor Stephen Miller as a critical piece of President Trump's America First immigration agenda, aims to reshape that immigrant community. Its backers want fewer poor people who might require public housing and food assistance. They want to turn away sick people whose maladies may end up requiring costly Medicaid services made for by the government, and they want to discourage those whose lack of English proficiency could hold them back from succeeding in a competitive economy. Give me your tired and your poor who can stand on their own 2 feet and who will not become a public charge, Kenneth T. Cuccinellini II, the director of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, said bluntly on NPR's Morning Edition, adapting the poem on the Statue of Liberty to a more Trumpian view of the country's duty to immigrants. Asked later by CNN whether that meant that the Statue of Liberty historical invitation to wretched poor immigrants was off the table, Mr. Cuccinelli clarified, well, of course, that poem was referring back to people coming from Europe, he said, where they had class-based societies, where people were considered wretched if they weren't in the right class. Beto O'Rourke, a former Democratic congressman from the borderlands of West Texas, now running for president, had a swift response on Twitter. This administration finally admitted what we've known all along. They think the Statue of Liberty only applies to white people, he said. Admitting productive, self-reliant people has long been the objective of United States immigration policy. The Immigration Act of 1891... The Immigration Act of 1891 is what they're quoting, but so many people on the left sit there and say, well, I am a constitutional originist. It refers back to 1891, not 2019, where now we have over 300 million people in the United States. One of the country's first moves to regulate entry into the country from abroad permitted the exclusion or deportation of people deemed to be a burden on the public purse. It referred to idiots, insane persons, paupers, or persons likely to become a public charge. At Ellis Island, arrivals who were inspected by public health officials and deemed unfit were returned to their country of origin. Steamship lines could be fined for having transported them to the United States. Later, illegal immigrant workers from Mexico and China faced similar scrutiny. Mr. Trump, from the beginning, has demanded an immigration system based on merit that would favor high-skilled workers over family connections. He has mused about why the United States does not take more people from countries like Norway, while complaining about immigrants from shithole countries in Africa or places like Haiti, which have been wrecked by natural disaster. Congress has so far failed to pass legislation that would create a merit-based immigration system, but the regulation announced Monday will have a similar effect according to experts. As immigrants are subjected to a new array of evaluating factors such as credit score, student debt, and income level, the system will give preference to those with more skills and greater assets. In doing so, it will have gone a long way toward engineering Mr. Trump's goal of redefining what it is to be an American immigrant, without needing approval from lawmakers. See, I don't agree with this at all because there are plenty of people of color in other countries that have assets and that have intelligence and they have skills regarding computer technology and these things. We want innovators. We don't want leeches. Pretty much. This is how I'm taking it. I'm sure people are going to go off the deep end and sit there and say, oh my God, it's racism. This is the biggest racist thing ever. I don't consider it racism. I consider it not wanting leeches to leech off the government funds when there are American citizens that actually need these funds and they need the help, and not help for the rest of their lives, the help to get a job and to provide a living for their family or to start a career or what have you. I see it as we're getting rid of leeches and we're bringing innovators to once again make America great. Because if you bring in the leeches, they have children. Those children don't provide anything for society. But if you have engineers or if you have intelligent folks contributing to society and contributing to a nation, then they're going to raise their kids with intellect and desire and fortitude. And those kids will once again contribute greatly to society. I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie Idiocracy, but I think we're just trying to get away from that narrative and that progression by doing that and bringing people with skills. Okay, back onto the article. The new policy will go into effect on October 15th. If it survives numerous legal challenges from immigration advocates who call it the latest example of Mr. Trump's efforts to shut the United States off from the rest of the world, lawyers for Santa Clara and the San Francisco counties in California filed lawsuits on Tuesday asking a court to block the regulation. But already supporters and opponents of a robust immigration system are grappling with the question of how the 837-page regulation will affect the immigration landscape. What appears clear is that those who have lower incomes and others who are in poor health will be the most directly affected as immigration officials in the Trump administration determine that they are probably to be in need of costly public benefits like Medicaid, housing assistance, and food programs. Maria, an immigrant from El Salvador who is hoping for a green card, and Edward, who is an American-born citizen, were married 2 years ago. The young couple's lifetime earning potential is high. He is a military veteran who recently completed a degree in economics. She is completing a nursing degree. They are in the process of applying for her permanent residence. But because of their relatively low current income, Maria could get rejected under the new rules, a prospect that worries a couple who live in the Washington area, and spoke on the condition that only their middle names be used out of concern that commenting publicity could hurt their case. With all of these new requirements, we will fall short because we are just starting out, Maria said, but we want to have the chance to fulfill our goals. Dario Aguirre, an immigration lawyer in Denver, said his 72-year-old grandmother with arthritic can't even say it, arthritic knees could be found a public charge because she cannot work and faces potentially expensive medical care. A construction worker making $30 an hour with 3 children and a stay-at-home spouse, he said, is likely to face more scrutiny than before about his ability to provide for his family without help from the government. I don't understand that, because I've been a stay-at-home dad for 7 years. My wife recently got promoted last year to $17 an hour. And she's been providing, well, I guess we don't have 3 children, we have a child. But, I mean, that was a choice made by the 2 consenting adults not to use, contraception. They chose not to use rubbers or practicing safe sex. So that was their choice, not the government's choice to provide their family for care if the guy's only making $30 an hour and the wife chooses to stay at home. It's not the taxpayer's responsibility nor the government's responsibility. That is the responsibility of the 2 consenting adults. That is why we only have 1 child, because I'm not making any more. I'm very low skilled, and she's only making $17 an hour. So, yeah, that's why we only have 1 child, okay? The new public charge could render the vast majority of applicants inadmissible, Mr. Aguirre said, adding that the new rule gives officers carte blanche to deny green cards to a broad spectrum of working-class immigrants from less developed countries like El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. There are nearly 13 million legal permanent residents in the United States, though the number constantly changes, as hundreds of thousands each year become naturalized citizens and others win their green cards for the first time. Mr. Trump on Tuesday said the intention of the new policy was to make sure immigrants were not heavily relying on costly public benefit programs. Like I said, being leeches. I am tired of seeing our taxpayer paying for people to come into the country and immediately go on to the welfare and various other things, Mr. Trump said. So I think we're doing it right. But how much immigrants rely on public benefits such as Medicaid and food stamps is a subject of intense dispute. According to a report published in 2013 by the libertarian think tank Cato Institute, 32.5% of adult American-born citizens receive benefits through 32.5% of adult American-born citizens receive benefits through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP, compared with 29% of adults who are not citizens. Okay, so 32 plus 29, that's 61.5%. 61.5%. Where's the other 40? Where's the other 40%? Where are the other 40% of adults? Different study by the Center for Immigration Studies, which advocates restricting immigration, found that 58% of non-citizen households use welfare programs, compared with 30% for households headed by a native-born person. That sounds more accurate. At least you have a 60-30. It should really be about 70-30, because you're still missing about 12% there, give or take, but at least you're not missing 60% from the libertarian think tank Cato Institute, Though some immigrants, I love how they say a different study by the Center for Immigration Studies, which advocates restricting immigration, but this one's like, oh, but these people don't advocate on that. But we're not going to put that. They advocate on open borders. They're just going to leave it blank. So there's bias right there. They're trying to infect that right there, which advocates restricting immigration. Although the think tank Cato Institute right here, there's nothing about open borders or restricting immigration. Because if they believe in open borders, that's going to trigger, I guess, I can't even say alt-right, but just the right or the, people with, I believe, common sense. Though some immigrants qualify directly or through their United States citizen children for public benefits estimates drawn together by the National Immigration Forum, an immigrant advocacy group suggests that they contribute more in taxes than they draw from the state and local government. For an example, an updated report released in March 2017 by the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy found that undocumented immigrants alone contribute $11.74 billion each year in taxes, though they do not qualify for most public benefits. State-level analysis have found that immigrants more than offset with their taxes the amounts they draw each year from public benefits by $1 billion total. In Florida, according to one report, and $1,500 per immigrant in Arizona, according to another. Then there's a nice little graph right here, possible impact in the new public charge rule by region of birth. While a few green card applicants receive public benefits, new public charge rule and it will allow immigration officers broad discretion to make a judgment on whether they are likely to use benefits based on factors like English proficiency and socioeconomic factors. Mexico and Central America, percentage of immigrants with at least 5 factors. The likelihood that the new public charge rule will favor immigrants from European and developed countries is part of a long history of American immigration policy that has tended to give preferences to Europeans over those from less developed parts of the world. When race-based quotas were abolished in name under the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, they were replaced with a strong, legally enshrined preference for family-based green card petitions, but one that many historians say was intended to welcome in more Europeans wishing to join their family members in the United States. This was a very high collaborated attempt to increase European immigration, said Muzaffar. I'm sorry, man, I messed up your name completely. Muzaffar Chisti, the director of the Immigration Policy Institute office at New York University School of Law. Dude, I am so sorry. I completely messed up your name. It just did not work out that way, he said. Instead of confluence of factors, including rising quality of life in Europe, advancements in transportation technology, and the end of colonial rule in countries in South and East Asia had unforeseen consequences. Europeans became less interested in American immigration, while instead the United States ushered in scores of others, Indian students, Filipino nurses, entrepreneurs from Hong Kong, who in turn petitioned to bring their family members behind with them. As a result, while 85% of immigrants in the United States in 1960 were of European origin and 15% came from elsewhere in the world, Mr. Chisti said today the reverse is true. The way that means testing tends to favor immigrants from Europe and Canada already has become apparent over the past year as State Department's consular officials began evaluating visas on the basis of whether applicants are likely to be heavy users of government benefits. Visa denials increased across the board, according to a report by Politico, particularly in less developed and impoverished countries. The data obtained by the news organization showed steep increases in visa denials for countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Haiti, and Dominican Republic. In Mexico, visa denials jumped from 5,300 during 10 months of 2018 and 2019, up from 7 in all of 2016. Tammy Fox Isikoff, Miami lawyer, said that an American citizen client, an entrepreneur with an MBA, petitioned for his parents, 60 and 65 years old, who are both healthy and hold engineering degrees, to immigrate to the United States from Uzbekistan, despite the fact that he presented proof of $470,000 in assets. His parents were denied immigrant visas based on the totality of circumstances, according to correspondence reviewed by the New York Times. The consular officers required $1 million in assets from their son to reconsider the case. They are making it really hard for American citizens to sponsor parents. Most of them are going to be over 60 at the very least, Ms. Fox Isikoff said. You know, I could understand that. I could understand if you're somewhat of a young person. I mean, you're an established individual who's worked hard and you've made money and you want to bring your parents here so you could be with them once again as they're growing older and you're growing older before they die. I get that and how it could be a little difficult. But with that being said, the majority of the immigrants I see coming over are not like that. The majority of them are military, working-aged men, especially with the caravans. That's what I saw. You know, I'm only human. I may be wrong. You know, there's three parts of the truth. This side, his side, her side, and the truth. So I'm looking at it as many angles as I possibly can without trying to form too much bias. But I am biased to the fault of what I do see and what I have seen. I guess we'll get into more of that as you get to know me. Anyways, take care. Like I said, if you want to improve quality, share, like, and comment. All right, then. Till next time. Trump's policy could alter the face of the American immigrant. A report by the New York Times. It's by Michael D. Shear, Miriam Jordan, and Caitlin Dickerson. The Trump administration has said the immigration overhaul it announced this week will ensure that new legal residents carry their own weight, without prejudice or favor. Yet the new rule for weeding out those who might be a drain on taxpayers will almost certainly disadvantage poor people from Latin America, Africa, and parts of Asia. Over time, people who are granted green cards, the major step toward winning citizenship, will become wealthier, but their numbers will shrink, researchers predicted. More green cards will go to immigrants with a good education and a measure of self-sufficiency. Fewer will be granted simply because someone has